I'm with Elana Heideman from Israel Forever Foundation, and today we're talking about Shavuot. Now, Elana, what is Shavuot?
Well, shalom, shalom. And Shavuot is the holiday of weeks, the festival of weeks, which is the exact translation of the word of that we call it. And we are counting the weeks from the Exodus from Egypt until the giving of the Torah at Sinai. So we have these very powerful 49 days where we count every day, the significance of each day throughout these weeks. And then on Shavuot, we come together and we celebrate once again, just as we had stood at the base of Mount Sinai to receive the Torah from God. So too do we come together on Shavuot to celebrate again and to receive again the Torah as our guide, our book, of faith, and our book of integrity by which the Jewish people continue to live. Shavuot, I'll add, is also an agricultural holiday for those who are interested in the many aspects of the Jewish faith and Jewish culture. Our love of the land is something that we have always taken as a priority in our life. And so we also celebrate the first fruits that were brought to the temple. On Shavuot, they would travel from all over the world in order to come to Jerusalem to the Holy Temple on Har Habayit, what is called the Temple Mount, and bring the first fruits. So it's really a very powerful and important holiday on the Jewish calendar, one of the three pilgrimage festivals, Shalosh HaRegalim, Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot, when it reminds us of also our continuity as a people and our connection with Jerusalem. So the Torah binds us, and Shavuot is the day on which it was given, and the Jewish people were breathed into life as a nation. It's really a phenomenal holiday.
Mm. Now, God gave the law to Moses after freedom from slavery. Are many Jews praying for freedom today? It's over 600 days of captivity for the hostages.
Freedom remains an elusive concept in our minds because we don't understand how an entire world has sat silently by for all of these days and denied the freedom of innocent individuals who were snatched from their homes, grabbed in mid dance from their party and from the life that they deserve to live. Unfortunately, we continue to pray day after day that not only our hostages be released into freedom, but that we also are given the freedom to fight and win the war of what is happening in the war against Israel, because indeed it is a war against humanity. And we need to do everything possible to acquire not just freedom for our hostages, but freedom for all of Israelis and all Jews everywhere. Freedom from being demonized and delegitimized in every possible space. So freedom is on our lips and the hope for it every single moment.
So, this is a biblical holiday where you have to come to Jerusalem. What's it like in the current situation? We're seeing the Houthis firing missiles, triggering sirens, and Jews are running to the bomb shelter. So, is it a scary time at the moment in Jerusalem?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because on one hand, it's very exciting in Jerusalem and people really continue to come en masse to our holy city. I don't actually feel that there is any greater fear in Jerusalem than anywhere else in the country, to be honest. I think that there are, of course, people who are agitators, and that is true on all sides of the social, ethnic, and political and religious spectrum. Meaning, this past week on Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day, when we honor the and commemorate the return of our people to our holy city, when at the end of the 6 Day War, on day 3 of the 6 Day War, we managed to conquer and retrieve back and liberate Jerusalem from the hands of the occupying forces, the Jordanians at the time. And it's very important that we realize how Jerusalem is central to many different faiths, but it is central to many different faiths because it was central to the Jews. So therefore, everything we're hearing in a modern day narrative, which ties to de-Judaize Jerusalem and claim in the United Nations and in pretty much every every space in the world, unfortunately, people are saying that Jews have nothing to do with Jerusalem. And these holidays remind us that indeed they do. Indeed, this is our eternal capital city, and it is holy and important because of the Jewish nation. So on Yom Yerushalayim, there is a big parade that goes through, and it's been demonized that these religious Jews are inciting. However, if you've ever been a part of this parade, what you end up experiencing is many, many Jews singing, dancing, waving flags, and being happy. And there are those on the route that we walk that are being spitting on the Jews, screaming at the Jews and calling for their death. And inevitably you have Jewish marchers who are calling for violations of those around them. Death to Arabs, I know, was heard somewhere, and therefore that makes front page news, therefore demonizing the hundreds and thousands of Jews who march, demonizing their very calm and peaceful, exciting day of celebration by tarnishing what this positive experience really is. So there are always ugly issues on every side of the society, and Jerusalem is a microcosm of it. So when we bring it to Shavuot, interestingly enough, we don't have a lot of that same fear factor than on any other day, because the Jews are going to Jerusalem. They are at the Kotel. We are walking freely in our religious attire with our families, celebrating the day, religious and non alike. And it has the potential to be a day of peace. So is there fear? I think that that's always true. I'll be honest with you, Paul. I think that these days we're seeing many elements of fear of those who are in Tel Aviv, where there are, and other random communities where there are terror attacks that are happening again and again. They're not just happening in the areas of Judea and Samaria. But of course, we have very high level security on guard these days, and many of the attempted attacks are thwarted. So, we get accused that we have high security, but imagine if all of these attempted attacks were actually successful. How many more hundreds, and that includes Jews, Arabs, Christians, Muslims of every type, how many would be killed? How many would be injured if our security installations weren't as good as they are? So, yes, you're right. There's a sensitivity in the air, but we always have to overcome it and keep our positivity and say, we will do everything possible to keep doing whatever necessary to build the exemplary society we believe that Israel, Jerusalem, and everywhere in between could be.
Now, when it was Purim, many people remembered the Bieber's children by dressing up as Batman. This Shavuot, will people be remembering the baby of Tzila Gez, who was shot and killed while going to give birth? Now we just hear today in the news that the baby has died. So do you think people will be remembering that family and that baby at this time?
I want to say thank you, Paul, for knowing about Tzila Gez and her story and for asking this question. I do not think that there will be any specific reference to this one victim of terror, but she is certainly in our hearts because of the teachings that, may she rest in peace, Se'ela was always offering through her social media engagement and through her work as a counselor. I think there are many people who were impacted by this one woman more than they realized. And then all of a sudden she meets this horrific, tragic death. And yes, the loss of the baby is really a loss in all of our hearts, because a Jewish woman, is the future of our people. And that child really captured the prayers and the hope of so many, that at the very least, the husband who did survive the terror attack, maybe he should at least find consolation in the life of the new child. So it is very devastating for us to have to accept this news. I think that on Shavuot, when we spend all night learning, so we have a big dinner and then we spend all night learning Torah and celebrating with our families and our communities. And then the following day, we have the special prayers and the reciting of certain chapters of the Torah. I think that Se'elah is one of many names that is on our mind. We should know also the feeling in the hearts of many Jews around the world of the loss of a woman like Sarah Milgram, who was gunned down outside of a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. And unfortunately, her murder and that of her partner, Yaron, himself a Christian who very much believed in and followed Judaism, as Ruth, who is another figure from the Bible that we honor on Shavuot, as Ruth also took Judaism and took the Jewish people and our destiny upon herself. Yaron had really made himself an integral part in this society, having lived in Israel for many years and then moving to work for the embassy in Washington, D.C. The murder of these two individuals, like that of Tse'ela Gez, is an example of the genocidal intent that is alive and well around the world. I think that there is the need to remember and know the names of each of these victims and what they stood for. Interestingly enough, you have Sarah Milgram, who people are touting as a advocate for peace, and that she was very adamant in working in peace initiatives. And I had met her and I know of some of her work, and I do admire every single thing that she had done. Most recently, she had actually brought a delegation to the White House to speak on the violation of women and sexual violations on October 7th being used as a weapon of war. And so her work was really wide spread. And I want to emphasize that I believe Tse'ela Gez, who others would demonize as a settler, and many have said that she deserved to be murdered in the way she was because of her being what is called a settler. What is a settler? It is somebody who is a pioneer and living in the ancestral Jewish homeland to which we absolutely have every single indigenous right and international legal rights. But because we're constantly having to toe the line and to worry about public opinion, international public opinion, we allow these wonderful pioneers to be labeled as if they are somehow a extremist element. But indeed, Se'ela Gez, I believe, was also very much a fighter for peace initiatives, wanting to be able to live. You asked earlier about freedom. She wanted to be able to live freely in her homeland and peace with the Arab neighbors amongst whom she lived. And so I think it's very important for us on this Shavuot to think of the various victims of the ongoing hate against Jews, the call to murder Jews, to legitimize the murder of Jews. Because on Shavuot, we also have to remember that we receive the Torah, which is our ethical code. It's the rules of daily life. This is our map for creating a just society. And I think what we're hoping this Shavuot is that the entire world will learn something from the Jews about how we all must work together to create the just society where we can all live in peace. Every faith, every side of the political spectrum, no one owns peace. And it's something that we all are fighting for. So we hope that our prayers this Shavuot will be answered and that we can see a new day of peace rise, as Yuval Raphael sang so beautifully in Eurovision, which, again, this is an idea that binds us to what we inherit on Shavuot and what we celebrate on Shavuot and all year round.
Now, we've just remembered 600 days of captivity and war. Are you hopeful for a hostage deal before the start of Shavuot?
In the many conversations we've had, we always ask if we're hopeful for it, and the answer is always yes, the hope is there. I am also a realist. We see that Hamas is manipulating every single potential deal, while the blame is being placed on Israel and Netanyahu through the derangement syndrome that has been born against Bibi. I think that it's important to realize that our hope is there. The deal on the table is not optimal, at all. We are not at all hearing anyone in the world scream out for a deal for all living hostages to be released other than the Israelis. The Israelis are demanding, and the Israeli leadership is demanding, contrary to what public opinion may believe, they are demanding the release of them all. But in negotiations, we have compromise. And unfortunately, those who are mediating these negotiations are themselves complicit in the kidnapping, the funding of terror, and the extension of this war. They are benefiting from Israel continuing the war that we are fighting, and they are benefiting from the captivity of the hostages. To such an extent, you should be aware that in the several weeks ago, a deal that was offered was for the release of all the hostages, and the Qatar mediators themselves, it is said, told Hamas not to take the deal and to continue to hold out for more. So you actually have entities who claim to be impartial and claim to be seeking peace, actively involved in promoting incitement to terror and fueling the terror themselves. And that's something that we all need to be aware of. This deal that's on the table, we hope and pray that it will come to life. We cannot imagine the suffering of the hostages themselves. I mean, we can't, because the stories that we hear from the hostages who have been released, they defy our imagination. Now, I've said that for decades about the Holocaust, that they defy our imagination because we cannot put ourselves in that place. However, we have the evidence and we have the testimonies. And so I encourage everyone to go and seek out new testimonies that you can learn and hear from, so that you have more information that you can share when you're talking with others who try to claim that the hostages are legitimate, that keeping these individuals who deserve their freedom captive is legitimate. And unless the common person is doing more, we're going to continue to see deals be evaded and opportunities missed, because too much support is being offered for the terror incentives and not enough support for the call to release the hostages and the war ends. That's it. It's a very simple equation. Release the hostages, the war ends. More people get involved in demanding that release, the war can end. All the suffering of all sides can be alleviated, not by Israel capitulating, but by Hamas surrendering and giving the hostages their freedom. But we said this on Pesach, and we'll probably continue to say it, because they will hold these hostages as long as they are playing cards, as long as they can benefit. And unfortunately, we're seeing a world that is enabling the benefit off of the innocent lives. And it's a disgusting reflection of what has happened to humanity. Reminds us again of the importance of Shavuot. Bringing the Torah to the world is what can save the world. Supporting Israel in this fight for humanity is what will save humanity.
What is your prayer for Israel during Shavuot?
Strength. Strength, and to find moments of joy amidst the heartache, and to find ways to not let those who seek to divide us and destroy our unity, to not allow them that power. It is really a sensitive time for the Jewish people. We're seeing a lot of division, even now that you have increasing attacks, terror attacks on Jews everywhere in the world. And so this is a new front to the war. And unfortunately, there is in any war, the competitive narratives of suffering. We already have seen it in these 600 days about the comparison between the suffering of the Palestinians in Gaza and the suffering of others and Jews living under wartime. Our conditions are different. The circumstances are different. But actually, for all of us to achieve peace, we all have the same goal, other than the fact that they continue to call for the murder and the extermination and the genocide of Israel and the Jews. So my prayer for Shavuot is that the light that came upon us on Mount Sinai will be cast upon the world, and that more and more people will see that if you stand with Israel, you will be blessed, as it says. And we need more people to stand up and be vocal and to do more. Go to your city councils, talk in your educational communities and in your personal communities. Do more, because you can save another soul by showing them the light.
What is your website for people who'd like to know more?
Our website is israelforever.org. And if you come and follow Israel Forever, where we are doing everything we can to inspire personal activism for individuals, families, and communities in creative ways, and where we are working to provide the information and resources where you can feel a sense of belonging as a virtual citizen of Israel, this is a community where we are proud to have, we just crossed, I'll say, in the last month, over 2 million, a reach of 2 million within the last 30 days. And it makes us feel so proud. We are such a small grassroots organization, really a small family trying to change the world with our little bit of hope and our prayers that more individuals can feel empowered. So come to israelforever.org. Sign up to our mailing list, join as a virtual citizen of Israel. And even more importantly, you can join us as an ambassador. You can do more so that we can save the world that deserves to be saved. And to know that we were not silent during these very, very important days. I think that our prayer collectively must be strength during these times of hardship and hope during these times of division. So let us all pray that we can stand with Israel, not only today, but as I always say with my cliche, but forever, because that is how we will know we've done something really special. We've done something really meaningful, and we've gifted it to one another. We can feel empowered through our hope.
Well, Elana, thank you very much for sharing today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope all the listeners out there are finding a new way to keep their light alive.